What's up guys, super quick video. Today we're going to do a kettlebell sport programming series for the kettlebell sport nerds, and today we're going to talk about short intervals. So most of the time people start the kettlebell sport training with 1 minute intervals, and 1 minute and below is what I would classify as a short interval, and a lot of people do only that. That is not enough for ideal progress, but the short intervals play an important role in your development as a kettlebell sport athlete, and programming them is not as straightforward as it may seem at first. So what are we talking about? Usually we're talking about 1 minute intervals, but it can also be less. So depending on the goal, I might also program 30-second intervals or even 15 seconds, but most of the time we're doing 1 minute, and most of the time we have a work-rest ratio of 1:1. So we work 1 minute and then we rest 1 minute. And we're looking at a total volume of around 10 sets, so that's going to be 10 minutes of work, which is equal to the competition distance. So this is your basic kettlebell sport programming 101, where everybody has done that. Everybody who's ever done any kettlebell sport training has probably done a session like that. So you do 10 sets, 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and this gives you, I'd say, a good mix of aerobic and anaerobic adaptations. What does this mean? We have two different energy systems, right? We have the aerobic energy system, which basically just means with oxygen, and it's the one that's responsible for long efforts. And then we have the anaerobic energy systems, plural, who are responsible for basically shorter efforts, right? And the advantage of the anaerobic energy system is that the intensity they can sustain is higher, but they also fatigue quicker. And the aerobic energy system is not as powerful, but it can basically go on forever. And in kettlebell sport, with a duration of 10 minutes, we need both of those energy systems, so we need to make sure we develop both in our programming. And to give you just like an idea, for every effort that takes longer than around a minute or so, the aerobic energy system is going to be very important, and the longer it goes, the more important it becomes. So even like a mile run, where a top miler or like a high level miler might run it in 4 minutes or so, which is a very short duration, but it's still going to be around 60% aerobic. Okay, so in kettlebell sport we have a very high requirement on the aerobic energy system, but we also need those anaerobic qualities, so we need to develop both. And obviously the shorter durations, like 1 minute sets and even shorter, are going to be geared more towards the anaerobic energy systems, right? So the 1 minute on, 1 minute off gives us, I'd say, a pretty good mix between aerobic and anaerobic adaptations. Now, if you want to develop the anaerobic energy system more, so you want to basically develop your power and your lactic capacity more, you're going to increase the rest. Okay, so if you might do, for example, less sets, maybe 5 or 8, and you might do a work rest ratio of 1:2, or even 1:3 or 1:4, and that's going to allow you to work much harder during those 1 minute intervals. So your sustainable pace is going to be much higher, and that means we're going to work much more utilizing the anaerobic lactic energy system and much less reliant on the aerobic energy system. Okay, so if you specifically want, for example, to improve your capacity to, let's say, accelerate in the last minute of a 10-minute set, then it would be a good idea to do, for example, sets of 1 minute at a very high pace, but with longer rest in between, right? Now, conversely, if you want to develop your aerobic energy system, you might shorten the rest periods, right? So one thing I like to do, or you can do more sets, okay? Because the thing is, the anaerobic energy system, it can go for a short time, right? Really powerfully, and then it needs time to recover. And when you reduce the rest periods, it's going to reduce your pace that you can do during the work intervals, and your heart rate is going to be much more elevated throughout the session, so the whole effort becomes much more aerobic. To give you an example, you might do 1 minute on, 30 seconds off, right? And if you do enough of those, it's going to be much closer to, for example, a continuous set of 10 minutes. So it's going to be much more aerobic compared to what we talked before, where you may do 1 minute sets at full effort with almost full recovery in between, right? So more total work means more aerobic work, and shorter rest in between also means we target the aerobic energy system more with incomplete rest. Why? Because the anaerobic energy system can't recover sufficiently in those short rest periods, so we need to rely on the aerobic energy systems. Okay, and another way you can make your short intervals more aerobic would be to, for example, do more of them. Okay, so if you do like 20 sets of 1 minute on, 1 minute off, your heart rate is going to get up much higher, and you're going to be forced to lower the pace, and it's going to be more of an aerobic effort. So those are like the 3 types of short intervals you can do. And as you can see, it's not so simple, because you can kind of like modify them to target different adaptations. So the standard, yes, your 1 minute on, 1 minute off, very useful. You can do 8 to 10 sets. Like usually with jerk, you can do a little bit more work. You can do maybe up to 12, and that's going to be like your standard session. That's going to give you a good mix of aerobic and anaerobic adaptations. If you want to skew more anaerobic adaptations, and sometimes athlete might need that if he, for example, lacks the ability to accelerate, for example, so maybe he's very strong aerobically, he can go at a constant pace, and that's like already going to take you far in kettlebell sport. But sometimes you want to develop a little bit of that power, right? So you want to, like, in the last minute or in the last 2 minutes, like, pick up the pace. So to develop that, it's very useful to train, for example, sets of 1 minute and rest 2, 3, even 4 minutes in between, right? And that way you can really develop that specific endurance, special endurance. And on the other hand, if you want to do more of a base building session, right, maybe you're not ready mentally or physically early in your preparation for like really long sets, but you want to get a good training effect on your aerobic energy system, you might want to do either shorter rest periods. For example, like you can do 12 sets of 1 minute on, 30 seconds off, for example, or you do more sets, or both. Like in theory, like that would be pretty brutal, but like you could do, for example, even 20 sets of 1 minute on, 30 seconds off, right? Or just like 1 minute on, 1 minute off, but do just like a bunch of sets. Okay, so I hope that gives you some understanding of the different kinds of short intervals there are, and how you can modify them to target different energy systems. All right, part 1 of our kettlebell sport programming series. If you want to get an actual program that works for long cycle, new long cycle program, link in the description, get it, set a new long cycle PR, you will not regret it, and I'm going to see you guys next time.